Yes team, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be looking at one thing in particular, and that is consistency. And more importantly, how you can achieve consistency for the long term. Let's face it, most of us set these high expectations and standards, and when we don't hit the perfect week, we get really frustrated. You tell yourself, I just need to do X, but nothing changes and nothing is solid. It's probably worth mentioning at this point, you've probably done some of the common fixes. You've got yourself a new workout plan. You're sticking to a diet. You have downloaded the productivity apps, but these things never get to the root of the problem. And in today's video, this is exactly what we're going to look at. Here's the truth of it. The solution is actually simpler than you think, but you may not be able to see it just yet. Within this video today, I'm going to help shine some light on some things that may be going on in your world to help you get unstuck, more importantly, achieve consistency and achieve success for the long haul. So if you're ready to stop wheel spinning, keep watching, let's break it down.
What I'm going to do is introduce you to a few different teaching points that I work on with clients. And each of these you can go away and implement into your world right now. So, teaching point number one is understanding the sliding scale. No doubt you sit down on a weekly basis and plan out what your week could potentially look like. And if you don't do this, then I highly recommend that you do it either last thing on a Friday or first thing on a Monday, or both. And the three scenarios that I want you to look at are optimal, good, and okay. Now, if you are highly driven and you want to achieve success, then you will get good at understanding what optimal is. But what happens when you don't hit optimal by the end of the week? You feel like it's a failure and you feel like you aren't making progress fast enough. But what is happening is the opposite. It's actually forcing you to not take action at all. So when you do sit down on a weekly basis and you plan out your week, rather than just pigeonholing yourself into one outcome, start to plan across the board of an optimal, good, and okay week. That's three different opportunities to win versus just one. Progress is not about perfection. Perfection is just a fantasy that we make up in our mind. Progress is about showing up even when things aren't going your way. Consistently good beats inconsistently perfect every single time. Point number two, staying in the game. Now, when you embark upon whatever it is that you're doing right now, maybe you're just career driven and you're working on climbing up to the next level, or you're building your business and you want to grow it out and attract more clients and customers, or you just want to achieve something physically. And point number two is understanding the gap and the gain. Now, the gap is where you measure your progress against the ideal. And that is what keeps you in the gap. It keeps you stuck because you'll constantly be on a hedonic treadmill. There'll never be a point in time in which you reach and you are fulfilled in some capacity. It always moves. Now that's good on the one hand, but it's good to also recognize the second part, which is the gain, which is actually measuring your progress, looking backwards on how far you've come on this journey to where you are now, versus always looking ahead in the distance to, well, I'm not there yet. It's like being at the base of the mountain and looking up to the top and thinking, how am I going to climb to that? Rather than looking down and thinking, well, what is my next step? What is my next step? What is my next step? And then looking back at how many steps you've done. Then the outcome is a byproduct of your process, not the other way around of constantly looking at the outcome and always getting yourself caught up and stuck. Point number three, dancing with the grey. Now, if there's one thing that keeps us all stuck, it's the black and white thinking. All in or all out, all or nothing. Now this is your ego trying to trap you into repeating old patterns based on previous conditioning and expecting the future to be perfect because that's what you've planned for. But it's an illusion. It doesn't exist. You have to let it go. You have to let that perfect version go, because then ultimately you can actually let go of some of the beliefs behind it. There's almost a feeling behind it. If it's not perfect, it's not right, and if it's not right, it's wrong. It's not true. You just have to practice navigating new waters of grey and reflecting on how it feels and reflecting consistently on the progress, what's gone well, what hasn't, and how we can improve moving forwards. Because when you're in this black or white thinking, you actually create an imbalance of your standards and expectations. And what we need to get really good with grey is lowering those expectations and raising the standard, because then you can do the same process again and again and again together. It just means that the start point is just off and it's causing distortion. Bottom line is, when you let go of this need for perfection, you give yourself stress relief, you'll find a new level of mental freedom.
Point number 4, the weekly shutdown. Probably, if I'm honest with you, the most important one so far. Being able to properly become the CEO of your life, i.e. personally, physically and professionally, and actually shutting down the week and reflecting with some basic questions. As I briefly mentioned earlier, basic and easy aren't the same thing. It's sometimes too basic to the point where it doesn't give you enough of a feeling that it makes it worthwhile doing. That is exactly what you need to be doing. Falling in love with the boring basics. So this one, the weekly shutdown, is getting good at asking yourself some questions. And what I've actually done below in the comment section is you can download an 8-question template, which are the questions which we use inside the Built to Perform to properly shut down the week, and more importantly, get ourselves ready to start to plan the following week. As you can see on screen, this is actually the 4th page of a bigger template, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of a screenshot and a screen grab opportunity for you to go through this. So question number 1, what was the one word I lived by last week? If this is the first time you're doing it, question 8 is going to be more applicable, which is the actual word that you're going to set for the following week. For example, what is the one word that you can live by moving forwards into the week ahead? Is it action? For example, taking action faster on some of the things that you should be doing. So if you're putting tasks off, the word action in the back of your mind will just give you a bit of a cue and a trigger to remind yourself, right, stop what you're doing, set a timer, just begin and do that thing you said you were going to do. When you live by one word, 1, it's easy to remember. 2, you become accountable to a bigger objective in alignment with that one word. Question number 2, what is some things that went well and you made happen? Really start to celebrate some of the small wins. When you celebrate smaller wins, it's the same concept of compound interest. They build up into big wins, but it just has to go into your process like building a mountain with layers of paint. You've got to build up the wins in order for it to tip into your favor. Number 3, what didn't go to plan? Be really honest with yourself and ask yourself, what did not happen that you said you were going to do? More importantly, try and identify the reasons next to it why it didn't happen. Preparation, too tired, didn't feel like it. All of a sudden, you're starting to see your blind spots straight in front of your eyes, and therefore you can take action to rectify those to put you in a position of strength. Number 4, how can I improve? What's one thing you can do? Don't try and overwhelm yourself with 5 to 10 different things that you can do to improve, because reality is you won't catch any of them. Get good at focusing on one thing. Number 5, matter of urgency. What needs addressing first? Within your week of what's just happened, what is the first thing that clearly needs addressing? Could be something personal, physical, or professional. What needs more consistency and time? Sometimes along this process, you will reach a cruising altitude and you just need to stabilize. Like a plane, when it goes through turbulence and it's bumpy, you have to work to stabilize where you're currently at. So success for you might actually be giving yourself more time to be consistent at whatever it is that you're working on. Number 7, your gratitude list. What are some things that you're ultimately grateful for? How many times have we gone out into the world and you've quickly recognized that you're just over appreciating some of the things you don't have in comparison to undervaluing the things that you actually do have? So spend some time actually reflecting upon some of the things in your world which you actually have. Number 8, what is the one word I will live by next week? Based upon what you've done this week, you might have reflected and actually found out that actually my word next week isn't action, it's consistency. When you start to identify your weeks with single words, every week has got a mission. And if every week's got a mission, your micro of every day will more than likely fall into place in alignment with that weekly mission. This is not an opportunity for you to beat yourself up. This is just an opportunity for you to have honest reflection on yourself and ask yourself the question of why you aren't moving the needle in certain things. Because a lot of us find it easy to bury our heads. And we've all done it, and we all sometimes do it more often than not. It's easier to bury your head and hope that it goes away, but then all of a sudden time goes on and nothing has happened. So pulling your head out of the sand and asking yourself some simple questions will actually allow you to see it in a frame of reference and a perspective which is actually more true. Because when you're beating yourself up in the moment, you haven't got all the facts and you haven't got all the evidence and you haven't got all the data. It's only until you can reflect on those things through a simple questioning process that you can actually give yourself more clarity. And when you've got clarity, you've got certainty. And when you've got certainty, you can operate and move forwards with a level of confidence, knowing full well that you know what you need to do. Here's the final point. Take ownership and communicate. If there's something going on right now which you want to get out of wheel spinning with, you've got to take ownership of that and take it on as your thing. Not looking to blame others and take on the victim mentality, but become a victor. Take ownership of it and find solutions within frameworks like we've spoken about already, but also navigating with your own experience. Don't be afraid to lean in. Plan, reflect, review, recalibrate, go again. In alignment with that, communicate what you're doing at home. Sometimes the communication part is the most difficult thing, especially with loved ones at home, because you've both adapted to who you are in the house. No one likes change. Even you embarking upon change will have a program in the background which won't like it because it's unknown territory. So if you don't like change, the other person isn't going to like change. Therefore, they might try and dig their heels in at every possible opportunity, which is why communicating and leaning into that conflict more often will create trust, because you're not filling in the blanks or trying to guess how the other person feels because you haven't spoken about doing what you want to do. Therefore, as a byproduct, they may start to support you on the actions that you're taking, because all of a sudden you're turning up as a better version of you. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to be around the best version of yourself? We all do. Start to communicate and take ownership of this project that you want to start to become more consistent in, because the byproduct of you being more consistent to doing the things that you said you were going to do starts to create self-belief, and it starts to create trust in yourself. Therefore, higher levels of confidence, and therefore having more courage to continue that process. And then it becomes a snowball effect, and all of a sudden you've got momentum. So there it is, 5 steps for you to start to plan your weeks better, get out of the black and white thinking, and start to take ownership of this mission. Remember that progress is not about perfection. It's about leaning in, taking the action, reflect, review, recalibrate, repeat. If this video has resonated with you, I'll be really interested to hear. So please click the like button and comment below with one thing that you're going to be doing moving forwards into this week, based on what we've spoken about today. Remember, you're built to perform. So let's take those 1% actions to continually move the needle. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.